Hi VC, how you doing? It's Gordon at iDig Vinyl here. In this video, I'm going to take a voyage through the latter part of the 1970s and show off some albums from my collection from 1975 to 1979. Really enjoyed having a look at what I had. It was fun thinking about what to show. I think the 1970s from my record collection's point of view, is maybe the most diverse, especially the second part of the 1970s. It seems like this is a time where music really explodes into all sorts of different genres and different directions. And it's fun to have a wee look at my collection and think about what to show. I've limited myself just to 2 albums per year, and I try to avoid what might have been a kind of obvious choice for me to share in terms of a great album from that particular year. So I've gone for some stuff that's sometimes a wee bit off the beaten track, I think, and I couldn't resist showing a few Stonewall classics as well. But basically, I've tried to mix up the genres, and it's a follow up to a video I did a week or two ago, which was about the first half of the 70s. When I've gone for 75 to 79, I've really realised what happened to music. It just absolutely exploded. So, without further ado, I will show you a couple of albums from each year. 70s for me is the ultimate kind of period of rock and roll decadence. So, to reflect that, the first album that I've gone for, so from 1975, so many things that it could have been, but I wanted to show off an album that to me really sums up the decadence of rock and roll stardom in the 1970s. And the best one I could find for that is the only solo album by Mooney himself, by Keith Moon, and this is his crazy album called Two Sides of the Moon. So this is an album that I'm sure there are books written about it. There could be a movie. I would imagine as well. But it's an absolute. This is a testament to excess, and maybe to the success of the production team to make this happen as well. Maybe. So from 1975, there's about 60 musicians, I believe, involved in the kind of process of getting the tunes together and committed to vinyl. The tales of rock and roll debauchery in the studio are fairly remarkable, and I think even Keith Moon getting together with the musicians that started the process is a kind of legendary thing. I believe he was involved in drumming for. This could be wrong. A lot of this could be wrong, but please feel free to correct me. What I've read about Keith Moon, he's involved with drumming for Harry Nilsson in America. John Lennon and guys like that are on the scene. Ringo Starr. Something happens and they end up living together for a couple of weeks in what must be fairly remarkable, kind of remarkable setting, and the groundwork starts to get put into place, I think, for what becomes this album. It's the time where Keith Moon and the rest of the Who are filming Tommy, and so he films that, but then he gets back to studio work on this. And as I said, I believe up to 60 people were involved. So there's a lot of excess taking place in the studio. Recording sessions would last for a short period of time, and then I think drinking sessions lasted for much longer. It's interesting looking at the musicians involved that there's maybe only certain names that seem to be involved with all the songs. So it's over a long period of time. Keith Moon, he's singing on all of the tracks. He drums on only 3, and I think I kind of understandably saw drumming as his sort of day job, so he gets a chance to sing here. A very interesting sort of selection of tunes. There's a Beach Boys cover. There's strangely enough a Who cover, which I find odd that he decided to go with that. Musically, it's not bad. It's a bit ramshackle at times, as you'd expect, but it's still a good listen. But I think what makes it interesting for me is more the process that this was this was created from, if you like. The cover itself has got its own kind of legendary stories behind it. Again, I'm not sure if these are just apocryphal rock and roll tales, but with Keith Moon, you never really know. So it's an unusual kind of cover. This one's pretty battered, but the story I read about goes that Keith Moon had a very kind of specific idea about the design of it, and I don't think in terms of budgeting the studio were particularly keen, or the production company were keen to make it happen. Story goes that he went into the studio after arming himself with an axe on the way, to say something along the lines of, "Dear boy, either the desk goes he's looking at in front of him, or my album cover." And what he was looking for is this odd kind of design where here's one side of the moon, and then you can have your alternative, which has got the other side of the moon right there. So yeah, it's kind of remarkable. I think there's a few enjoyable tracks. Lots of it's quite enjoyable. To me, the most haunting one though, I do think it's quite affecting, is this cover of the Beatles, "In My Life." Really nice version that Keith Moon is singing. It's quite his interpretation of it's really good. So a host of stars are involved. Legendary production sessions. It's his only solo album, but it's well worth a listening. For me, it sums up some of the mad times of the 70s in one record really well. So that was my first one from 1975. Second one's far more sane, I suppose, but it's an album that I've been really enjoying recently. It's the Fatback Band, so into a bit of funk now. So a bit of funk here. This is really great sort of party disco. It's that period where we're moving into disco, really kind of collective funky stuff, like on here where you're doing the bus stop, etc. Spanish Hustle. Super catchy stuff, but I think a brilliant band, a great bunch of musicians, brilliant sort of percussion, great sort of horns being played, and very catchy as well. But it's an album that I found myself listening to again and again, particularly that song, "Do the Bus Stop," which you start to recognise that beat, and you recognise that it's been sampled many times by a lot of different kind of hip hop artists. And something that I didn't know at all, that maybe loads of you guys know, but the it's kind of widely thought to be the first rap song was produced, or it's a Fatback Band song that was released, I think it's 1980, just a month or so before Grandmaster Flash. I checked it out, I streamed it the other day, and it's really good. So and I can see it as a rap song right enough. So the Fatback Band, 1975. This is a great, funky, sort of disco, very danceable, brilliantly produced, brilliantly performed band from 1975. 75, I was going to show something like Blood on the Tracks by Bob Dylan, or I don't know, David Bowie's Young Americans, but I thought let me go into more unusual terrain. So following that up into 1976, this time I wanted to show two albums from the same country, that represent zamrock and a kind of musical genre all of its own, obviously from that period in the mid 1970s. So first of all, this one, Viva Ngozi, is one of the brilliant, just so many of them, brilliant albums by the Ngozi family, who is Paul Ngozi on guitar, bunch of brilliant musicians, not many, it seems to be four players. Chrissy Zebi Tembo on drums, magnificent, brilliant singer in his own right. And this is their album from 1976, which this one here is a what do you call it, a Black Friday record store day release, I think, from last year. So it comes with a very interesting booklet. I do love these kind of additional bits of info, because it's quite hard sometimes to find out about Zamrock and the background and just how it really evolved and where it went. So I'm kind of fascinated by that. So there's a lovely booklet here. This is one of those great re-releases on Now Again Records. They've been releasing quite a lot of zamrock stuff over the last few years. Some of it's kind of readily available in the UK, some of it too expensive for me to buy to get from the States, but I do love it. So here you've got typical Ngozi family. Fuzz meets quite funky rhythms based on really kind of classic US and UK rock stuff from earlier on in the decade. It's brilliant, so catchy, great to listen to. Some of the, mostly in English, some of it in one of the native Zambian languages, which I really, really like as well. So that's from 1976, Viva Ngozi. And another Zamrock band from the same year is Salty Dog, a wee bit less known. It's hard to find out about Salty Dog, really. There's not too much that I can find on them. But this is really good as well. It's a wee bit more folky at times. This album, that when I was listening to it recently, I was thinking it kind of reminds me of, at times it actually reminds me of stuff like Cream, even a bit of Velvet Underground. It's got a bit more sort of acid folk at times, and then it goes back to your sort of that kind of funky, fuzzy guitar. It's a wee bit more to it, I would say, than the Ngozi family one, and the production itself is not as strong. And I think that's probably to do with, the state of the tapes and things like that, and how they were found. So really, really, really good though. It comes with a bonus track that's never been released on vinyl, I believe. So yeah, really good as well. Love Zamrock. This is from 76. I think it really sort of exploded around that time, 76, 77. By the end of the decade, it's pretty much gone. Musicians are leaving, they're heading into Zimbabwe, or they're stopping making music altogether. So really, really interesting background to what happens with where it comes from and where it goes to. But I'll move on actually into 77, and I'm staying in Africa. 77, if you think about it, wow, what happens to music now? Obviously, we've got punk exploding onto the scene, and there were plenty of things I could have shown there, but I thought I'll go in a different direction. I wanted to celebrate and show off a little bit of Afrobeat. So this is Fela Kuti's album from that year, backed by his backing band Amazing Africa 70, and this album is called No Agreement. So it's obviously Tony Allen on drums, so amazing Afrobeat drumming there. Fela playing and leading from the front. There's only 2 tracks, so side A is one long track called No Agreement, which is mainly instrumental. It's got a brilliant, brilliant rhythm. It's only really 2 chords that play over and over again. Starts with a funky guitar line, in comes Tony Allen, and it goes on, and wow, what a brilliant sort of hypnotic beat. Eventually, Fela starts to come in and sing that idea, the no agreement that he's talking about, and his message is pretty clear, and it's pretty clear what he's talking about from the artwork, what he's angry about, and what he's saying there about the sort of life of your general folk at that time in Nigeria. On the flip side, it's a single song as well, which is actually all instrumental, so it's great. It's jazzy, it's Afrobeat, it's very upbeat, a great listen. So he's an artist that I want to get a bit more from. You can kind of see the legacy of his work in so many many kind of avenues. His son, or both of his sons actually, but still releasing great music today. So this is part of the legacy. So I just wanted to show that from 1977. Another one from 77. It's just kind of moving the funk along a little bit, like the funky dial here, into the Brothers Johnson. This was their second album, I believe. Another mega talented pairing. And an album, I've got a bunch of their stuff now, but I haven't spent very much time listening to them. And I thought I'm going to give this one a wee bit more attention. It's really good. Great blend of music here. A great blend of different sort of moods as well. You can sort of sense the evolution of, can I call it, just the evolution of funk from the Fatback Band from 75 to the kind of stuff that's happening now a few years later. There's kind of slower tunes, there's really kind of hard, funky disco, brilliant musicianship, I have to say. There's the kind of classic cover of Shuggy Otis' Strawberry Letter, 23. So yeah, loads of great tunes. And I think the reason I wanted to show it, I think, is the production. It's Quincy Jones. It's a good example of how I think that sort of maestro can elevate in the studio and bring things together to a different level. So I think the song Q is about him. I could be wrong. I'd be kind of surmising that it is, but it's a classic wee tune as well. So there's this is great, danceable, upbeat funk as well as kind of moving into different moods at different times. So I really like the Brothers Johnson, and that's their second album, another 77 choice. Kind of staying with that whole vibe. So there's a wee vibe that I'm going through here, which is a bit jazzy, a wee bit funky. And this album from 1978, Herbie Hancock's album Sunlight, is another one that's just a brilliant vibe. Not perfect choice, I suppose, for moving into the month of November as we're about to, but I love the back of it. Check that out. You get the sense of a person that is just playing and enjoying playing with a bunch of amazing toys, and it's a great. This sounds so contemporary. Listening to it, I could be listening to the likes of Thundercat or somebody like that. You know, it's got that real that kind of brilliant sort of soulful, funky, very jazz fusiony stuff that's very much still going on now. So obviously Herbie Hancock can turn himself to so much. So it's interesting to listen to what he's producing here in 1978. And a use of the vocoder vocals, things like that, sort of reminiscent of even think groups like Daft Punk. So very influential. I've enjoyed listening to this a lot, and it sounds to me like it's pretty much Herbie. You look at the back of it, all vocals, all the background, and you can see himself in the studio there. Look at that, what fun he's had. So, yep, 1978, Herbie Hancock, great album. All that jazz fusion funk going on at the same time, brilliant. On the other side of the pond, it's 1978. Obviously, punk is moving in a different direction already. It's been there, and in some ways, it's kind of gone, hasn't it? It's going into all sorts of different avenues. So I thought I'll show this one off. This is the band Rich Kids. I think it's their only studio album, and it's a bit of a curiosity. It's quite an interesting listen. Rich Kids. This is Glenn Matlock's band. So after whatever happened, and depending on who you listen to, whether it's the Sex Pistols or Glenn Matlock's version of events, after he leaves the Pistols, this is what he moves on to do. And it's interesting reading about it. He has some studio sessions with, I think, Mick Jones from The Clash and stuff like that. Eventually, though, he forms the band Rich Kids, and he's got Midge Ure on vocals here. He kind of shares vocal duty. Glenn Matlock sings, I think, 3 of the songs. The rest are Midge Ure. It's a pretty successful album, I think. Not really absolutely my cup of tea. It's definitely moving on sound in terms of it's not that raw sort of punk stuff. I've seen it described more as almost like power pop. It's interesting listening to Midge Ure. He's got a bit of a Scottish twang to his vocals. I don't know if he maintained that off into Visage and then into Ultravox, but funnily enough, it kind of reminds me of the Manic Street Preachers. I find myself thinking you could imagine them. That's their kind of music actually. A lot of the song structures just swap the vocals in. It sounds like the Manics from about sort of 10 years later. So yeah, this is punk has already kind of happened for the likes of Glenn Matlock and Midge and Steve New on guitar as well. It's a good listen. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was surprised that Midge Ure had actually he found himself singing there. To be honest with you, it's quite good, but I can probably see that why it didn't quite take off. So anyway, 1979, there's so much happening at this time. It's the end of the 70s. Um, the world in some ways is kind of similar to now, I think. You can reflect that in the music that's there. So I'm going to end with a couple of, I would say, just Stonewall classics. Albums that I want to spend a bit of time listening to a wee bit more. I've had them in my collection, but probably not given them the attention that they should have for different reasons. Anyway, which one will I show off first? First of all, from 1979, an amazing album. It's the debut album by The Specials. And when I found myself listening to that, so it's interesting to me. So it's obviously very heavily ska flavoured. So ska looking back to the early mid 60s in Jamaica, but the content of it, the lyrical sort of subject matter and everything is it's so relevant to now. It's that kind of that the attacking division and examining why society's the way it is and looking for cohesion rather than splits. I think it's great, but it struck me that it's so relevant now, which is, I suppose, kind of sad in a way. But a brilliant album by The Specials. It's obviously ska flavoured, but it really does anticipate what's to come in many ways. Brilliant songs. How many? How many do you want to talk about? Look at that set list there. So it's a great debut album. Explodes out the blocks. Super catchy, but really interesting message behind it, I think. Interesting to kind of head into the 80s, and it certainly influences a lot of music to come. So great one there. Last but not least at all, I was maybe going to show off Entertainment by Gang of Four, which I think is a masterpiece, but I've shown it before. So I wanted to dig into something different, and the one I'm going for is another masterpiece for me, Joy Division's debut album, Unknown Pleasures. And that's one of those ones that I've had for quite a while on vinyl, and it's a bit, as you can see, it's a pretty battered copy. But I haven't really listened to it very much. I've been aware of it, but not really engaged with it. And I've changed that recently, and kind of not surprised, that I've been blown away by it. And I should have been blown away ages ago by listening to it properly. Um, all of the other albums that I've shown, I would say you can hear the evolution of them. You can see the connections to what's gone before, and you can kind of join the dots if you like. This one's different. I think it's a genuine, just a masterpiece of work. Bearing in mind how young the band are at this time as well. It's a debut. They blast onto the 1979 scene with this, and it just sounds fabulous. It sounds so fresh today, but it also sounds like it's new. I think so. An album cover that clearly launched a million T-shirts, and probably an album that launched thousands of bands. I would say you can kind of hear it, but yeah, it's just magnificent. So I'm going to spend a lot of time enjoying this a bit more. Track after track, clearly banger after banger. Ian Curtis's delivery is just spectacular, but it's all good. It's all good. Everything, drums, bass, guitar, it's all smashing. So I thought I would end 1979 with an album that I feel like it's come from somewhere different, and it just launches off into the 80s in a pretty special way. So that's me. I've done two videos. The first one looked at the first half of the decade, and that one takes me through to the end. I've really enjoyed it. It's kind of made me listen to records that I wouldn't have been at all otherwise, it's been an enjoyable wee task. I found myself, to be honest, desperate to learn to do the bus stop dance. It's so good. So that's a unexpected little bonus there. So I've enjoyed it. I'm going to move on. I'll delve into the 80s just to see what happens, and give myself that wee challenge of listening to what I've got in my collection all the way through. I suspect that block there, 75 to 79, is maybe my favourite period in music for now, but that could all change. If you've enjoyed the video, I would love to hear your own your own take on your collection from that kind of time period. Maybe share your thoughts in the comments. If anybody wanted to make a wee video, I would be delirious with excitement actually. But all good anyway. So thank you very much for watching, guys. Take it easy. Until the next time. See you later.